All right, let's say our La'asok B'divrei for a Torah blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher kidshanu tzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok Torah. Praise to you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy with your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves with the words of Torah. All right, so we're going to very quickly go through what we've seen so far so that we can get to the new material. So we have a prologue where we meet Rebecca when she's born after the Akedah. Now Act 1 is really where we meet Rebecca. So Abraham's servant goes and asks her, goes to find a wife for Isaac, and he wants someone who's willing to water his camels and is from his family, and Rebecca fits the bill and agrees to go to back to meet Isaac. And when they finally meet, Isaac loves her. This is our first romantic love in the Torah, and he is comforted after the death of his mother. Here we have a picture of Rebecca at the well at a synagogue in Chicago. Act 2, changes for Rebecca. So Rebecca and Isaac cannot have children, and they pray. Well, Isaac prays, and they are able to have children. Rebecca feels struggling in her womb, so she goes and asks God and is told there are two nations, and they are going to struggle, and the older will serve the younger. And then Jacob and Esau are born, and Esau becomes a hunter, and Jacob stays in the tent, and Isaac prefers Esau because he likes meat, and Rebecca favors Jacob. All right, Act 3, spotlight for Rebecca, the glow of the spotlight. So there's a famine, and Isaac goes to Gerar and claims that Rebecca is his sister so that he doesn't get killed, because in those days, as we know from other texts, contemporaneous texts from that time period in that region, kings had no problem killing husbands in order to marry their wives. And so Isaac says, like his father said, his wife was his sister. And then even at the risk of losing his own life, Isaac is so in love with Rebecca that he can't keep his hands off her. And the lie gets found out. And so the king says, all right, nobody touch this woman. She belongs to this guy. Act 4, Rebecca to the rescue. So I believe this is where we left off. So we're going to try to finish Act 4 and the epilogue in the next 44 minutes. All right, Barry, would you read our scene 1, please?
Yes. When Esau was 40 years old, he took to wife Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basmat, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they were a source of bitterness to Yitzchak and Rivka. Note that if Yitzchak was 60 when Esau and Yaakov were born, and it cites Reshit, then Yitzchak is now 100 years old. This part of the story takes place in Beersheba. What might Rebecca be thinking during this part of the story, and what might Rivka be feeling during this part of the story? Thinking and feeling.
Thank you. All right. How about it, folks?
Does it say why they were a source of bitterness?
No.
No.
Rebecca's probably thinking, why did they have to take Goyim for wives?
I was going to say, I think it's from It's said from prior psukim or psakim, whatever the plural is. We've seen before that the wives of the Canaanites are not desired wives for the sons of our patriarchs, and it's not been held back between patriarch and child. So Abraham made it clear. Yitzchak is making it clear. Why Esau would be surprised, I don't know. We haven't figured that out.
Well, could also be because these other nations are also idolaters. So aside from just being Gentiles, they're also idol worshippers. I mean, even though the Hittites are slightly or somewhat kind of very different from the Canaanite cultures, they still are idol worshippers. They worship some of the same gods as them, so that could be a source of for distress. They have different customs, different ways of living, so it could bother both Isaac and Rebecca for that reason. Just introducing conflict. I can imagine scenarios where just they want to do life in a different way, fundamentally different way, and it kind of just causes clashes in the household. I can imagine that on many different levels. So that would be my theory.
Other thoughts on what Rebecca is thinking or feeling during this part of the story?
David, do you think that they ever came over for Shabbat dinner?
Well, they, maybe they weren't the most appropriate women to be bringing up, or the descendants and leaders of the of our way of life. Clearly, what are the possibilities of continuing our as I said, our culture, way of life with women like that as the mother of her grandchildren? What kind of values are going to instill in their children?
Kind of piggybacking off of that, it could also be maybe because um the non-Jews entering this family are kind of directly refusing to integrate into it, maybe thinking about values and things like that. Because I think in other cases you do see non-Jews kind of integrating into the tribe in previous examples. For example, with like I think it's like Abraham's household when he, for example, has circumcision given to him. Doesn't he apply that to the rest of the members of his household as well? They're kind of integrated into the whole. So perhaps it could also be that these other new members kind of entering the tribe, so to speak, are sort of objecting to the basic norms of the tribe, maybe. This is maybe a little bit midrashic. It's not, I suppose I don't have any clues here. But
You don't have any clues here, but you're on perfectly good midrashic ground.
but yeah, that's another potential reason, kind of thinking about values, based off of what was said previously.
All right, let's go on to scene 2. Alan, would you read this, please?
Sure. When Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, "My son." He answered, "Here I am." And he said, "I am old now, and I do not know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver and bow, and go out into the open and hunt me some game. Then prepare a dish for me as I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my innermost blessing before I die. Note, the tents are not soundproof, and Rebecca had the oracle about the older one serving the younger. What might Rebecca be thinking during this part of the story? What might Rebecca be feeling during this part of the story?
Thank you.
I mean, I could see her thinking, uh-oh, my hopes and dreams are going to go down the tubes. Feeling worried.
What can I do to get my son Jacob the blessing from Isaac?
Or taking other track, what a calamity it would be if this blessing would then descend through the lines of Esau's sons that would be maybe lacking in the values that we believe in.
Question. I wasn't here in the very beginning, but if I remember this correctly, wasn't Esau born first because he grabbed his brother's heel and pulled him back in the womb? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, so
It's the reverse.
Not to digress too far, I just wanted to check and see if because I was
Yep,
thinking
sorry.
some things and I wanted to just check that little fact.
Yaakov was grabbing the heel. Esau came out first.
Yeah.
yeah, so let's see what it actually says. Okay, so here we go. In the text it says Esau comes out first. Jacob comes out holding onto the heel of Esau. It is an open question that one canon people have made a midrash about, whether he is trying to pull him back, or you can make a totally different midrash, which I haven't seen, but I'll make up right now, that he was looking to his brother to guide the way for him, or don't go anywhere without me, I'm coming along. Like, you can make up all sorts of interpretations as to why he's holding onto the heel, what he's thinking.
No, this actually answered it. I remembered incorrectly. Thank you. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but what I remembered was incorrect based on what the scripture is saying. So thanks.
I will say that it is easy to learn midrash as actual text. For example, I am working on a Torah reading right now of the first 3 plagues, and I had always thought that the Torah said that the first plague, where the water turns to blood, that when the Egyptians bought water from an Israelite, it would turn to blood. But now that I'm actually looking at the text closely for the first time, it's not in there. And it turns out that that's a midrash. I think Rashi brings it. So it's easy to have some common midrashim be what we think is in the original text.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, back to scene. Too far. There we go. All right, scene 2. Other thoughts about what Rebecca might be thinking or feeling?
In some ways, she might feel, I mean, she obviously wants one outcome, and she might be kind of happy that she overheard this, so she knows what the game plan is, so she can plan her own strategy.
Great.
All right, let's go on to scene 3. Charles, would you read this, please?
Let me see if I'm on my, I would prefer you have someone else read it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, but I'm on a very small screen on my cell phone, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge to read it in any fluid way. I can try. You starting with number 5?
Yes, please.
Rebekah had been listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau had gone out into the open to hunt game to bring home, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I overheard your father speaking to your brother Esau, saying, bring me some game and prepare a dish for me to eat, that I may bless you with Hashem's approval before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully as I instruct you. Go to the flock and fetch me 2 choice kids, and I will make of them a dish for your father, such as he likes. Then take it to your father to eat, in order that he may bless you before he dies. Jacob answered his mother Rebekah, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am smooth-skinned, and that's as far as I see on my screen.
There we go.
If my father touches me, I shall appear to him as a trickster and bring upon myself a curse, not a blessing. But his mother said to him, your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do as I say and go fetch them for me. We see from the text. Okay.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
We see from this text that Rebekah can be persuasive, though she does not try to persuade Isaac to change who the firstborn was. Documents from the Syrian city of Nusay from 1600 BCE show that this is something that fathers could do up to and including on the deathbeds. Given that Rebekah had less power in this marriage, her cunning received praise from later commentators all the way until the end of 1800s, when male biblical scholars started condemning her. Contemporary scholars, though, are starting to view her action through the lens of how other disadvantaged people may work to survive today.
All right, that was a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
What might Rebekah be thinking during this part of the story, and what might Rebekah be feeling during this part of the story?
David, I always had one question that I never got a good answer to. How can the dish made from 2 tame lambs taste anything like the dish made from the game that Esau was going to bring back? Why would Isaac not realize that it was lamb he was eating?
He wasn't her. It was goat.
Goat or lamb?
The text says goat.
Yeah, so I think part of the answer has to do with seasoning. Part of the answer may have to do with the fact that goats, particularly young goats, move around a lot, so the texture of their meat may be closer to wild animals that also move, not identical, but it'll have more of that. And then the other piece of it is that I'm guessing that by age 100, Isaac might not have been tasting quite as acutely as when he was younger. I haven't gotten to that age myself.
Did you mention the seasoning?
Can I add one more element
Yes.
of all this? as I said 2 weeks ago when we first started, or 3 weeks ago when we first started this whole series of stories, there is a strong movement in modern midrashim that says that Isaac and Rebecca were in on this from the very beginning together.
Could be, could be. Still.
So you're saying they sent the son off to get him out of the way so then they could then have go through this pantomime with Jacob?
That's a possibility according to modern scholars.
Can we think this through for a second? If if mom and dad were in collusion, then they're kind of throwing Yaakov under the bus on this, aren't they? They're creating the problem for Yaakov to save the face of the father. He was losing his sight, and I'm also thinking that the loss of the sight usually implies a keener senses that are to make up for the one that's lost. So I would think taste might be enhanced, as well as other senses with the loss of the sight, if that adage holds true. Anyway, I'm just winging some thoughts of mine out there that I'm unresolved about, but are rolling around through my brain.
Entirely possible.
When you're at the age that Isaac is, your body doesn't recover, doesn't adapt, doesn't change as well as it does when you're young. So, his sight may be going, but his other senses may not change to make up for it.
Plausible. Good point, Alan.
No, I think her statement about, when Isaac asks her about, what's going to happen if, my father curses me instead of blesses me. And she says, let the curse fall on me. That wasn't, I don't think, a frivolous statement. I think it's akin to, somebody who are in cahoots for whatever reason, even in the modern world. And they say, look, if something goes amiss, I'll take the fall for it. And you don't have to worry about that. I'll protect you. And I think that was, she was obviously very determined that she wanted this for her son. And she would do whatever she had to do to make it happen, even, to taking a curse upon herself.
He's got his back, right, Diane?
This supposedly was something that God told Rachel when she was pregnant about the two boys.
Okay.
Yet, if Isaac is giving God's blessing, then God knows which one the blessing is going to. So how can anybody be cursed as a result of this?
Could it be that God perhaps following a line from Jewish process thinkers like Rabbi Artson, maybe that God only knows generals about this decision that is going to be made with this blessing? Perhaps God only knows that the right outcome generally is going to occur. Whatever would be the most moral decision will occur out of this. Perhaps that thing about a curse is kind of just Rebecca convincing, trying to convince like Jacob about this. It's just kind of like, well, if it goes wrong, it won't affect you. Maybe it's not really part of, or perhaps it's just some sort of superstition that she's thinking. Maybe. I don't know.
Like what you're saying, Gabriel. I like it.
That's my speculation.
I like it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to the next scene. Norma, would you read this, please?
All phones rang at the same time. I apologize. He got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared a dish such as his father liked. Rebecca then took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were there in the house, and had her younger son Jacob put them on. And she covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with the skins of the kids. Then she put in the hands of her son Jacob the dish and the bread that she had prepared. According to Freimer Kensky, this strategy comes from Rebecca's knowledge of sheep breeding. Shepherds will try to match orphaned sheep with ewes whose lambs have died. Sheep will only nurse their own lambs, though so shepherds will wrap the orphan lamb in the skin of the dead lamb to fool the ewe. Oh, wow. What might Rebecca be thinking during this part of the story? What might Rebecca be feeling during this part of the story?
Thank you.
She only thinks about her own son, or, her favorite son.
Guys are going to have nations now.
I mean, she's certainly not thinking that what she's doing is wrong, or she doesn't care. I'm not sure which way it goes, but she's so intent on getting Jacob what she wants him to have.
Is it possible she's thinking of the fate of the Jewish people and what needs to take place?
Yeah.
Because he
Sounds
would be
good.
better. But it's interesting because she was a shepherd, wasn't she? Isn't that where they found her with the sheep when they went looking for a wife for Isaac? She was out with the sheep, so she obviously knew how to do all that.
Question, what happens to the second son who doesn't receive the blessing? Is he disinherited? Is that essentially it's an all or nothing type thing?
I don't know. I'll find out.
Well, if you read that Esau did come and ask for a blessing, but he couldn't give him the birthright blessing. He did receive another blessing.
Good, Charles. Good one.
Because I think, and I'm guessing, but this reminds me a lot of patriarch dies even in the modern world. And or maybe if you think of English succession or European succession in noble houses and that sort of thing, where, all goes to one and then the rest of them, not that they're left destitute, but they really don't inherit anything of significance. And I'm wondering if that was the struggle here for the birthright, because it seems like it really matters.
I mean, none of us are really saying that she's not a very nice person. But I mean, she is deceitful, right? She
But
wants,
I think she's fearful for her son. I think she's fearful.
wants what she wants.
Yeah.
But so
Manipulative.
deceitful.
Manipulative.
Mhm. But she's favoring one son over the other. And my wife, at least, she always is lecturing, shall I say, insisting that we treat all of our four children the same, that there's no favorites or favorites with our grandchildren. So it is. I would go along with maybe she is being deceitful and favoring one over the other, but maybe that's a typical human trait.
I think we got to take this as that it's presented to us. These people are not doing what you're saying. So how you're operating, Charles. These people have their favorites. Yitzchak's favorite seems to be Esau, implied by the texts, And I think that Rivka, based on what she learned from the House of Shame, and what she knows of the prediction about the two nations, and one rises when the other wanes, and vice versa, and the older will serve the younger. That I think Rivka thinks she's leveling the playing field from the favorite of her husband. So I don't think she sees herself as a sequel. I think she sees herself as a guider of what needs to come out. That's how I see her. I'm not intending to impose this. I'm intending to suggest the thought process.
According to rabbinical tradition, Israelites kept, it was Jacob who kept the line of the Israelites going, but Esau wasn't such a short shrift because he had the whole Roman Empire descend from him, according to rabbinical tradition.
Right.
Well, if you go back to Toldot, in chapter 25:23, the Lord is speaking to Rebecca, and he says, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 separate people shall issue from your body. One people shall be mightier than the other.
Right.
The older shall serve the younger.
Right.
So God already told her what's going to happen. In a way, she's just kind of following what she was told.
So I heard something interesting, or we read something in a class that I take on Sunday mornings. We're reading the book I Believe by Rabbi Sachs, and kind of what Barry was saying. But Isaac knew who Esav was the whole time, and his tactics were he was trying to bring his son along, and so that's why, as a father, sometimes you want to take interest in what your kids like, and his interest was hunting. And that's why he asked him to go get the game. And his whole strategy was trying to find a way to connect to Asa.
Mm.
Hmm.
Can I make a comment here about the previous incident and what the parents might know or not know? I'm thinking when Yaakov bought the birthright from Esav in the prior relevant passage, I'm pretty sure Yaakov would have told that to his mother. I perceive Yaakov as being the kind of guy who shares with his mother what's going on. I wouldn't be sure either way, and my gut is that Yitzchak may not know that Esav, he might, but he might not, that Esav has sold the birthright, because Esav kind of dismissed the responsibility part of being Bechor, as Yaakov described it to him. Got to slaughter sacrifices, and you have to do these rituals, and Esav didn't like the idea of doing that stuff. So, and yet he was a man in the field, and he was kind of a violent guy in himself, and yet he didn't like what he was hearing. So I think he didn't like the ritual and serving God part. So I don't know that Yitzchak knew what was really going on, because the jury is out in my head about what's going on here. I'm pretty sure Rivka did. If she didn't know it, she pretty well sensed it. That's how I feel about it. Good.
All right, let's go on to the next scene. Morris, would you read this, please?
He went to his father and said, "Father," and he said, "Yes. Which of my sons are you?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Pray sit up and eat of my game, that you may give me your innermost blessing." Isaac said to his son, "How did you succeed so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because your God granted me good fortune." Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob drew close to his father Isaac, who felt him and wondered. The voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, and so he blessed him. He asked, "Are you really my son Esau?" When he said, "I am," he said, "Serve me and let me eat of my son's game that I may give you my innermost blessing." So he served him and he ate, and he brought him wine and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come close and kiss me, my son." And he went up and kissed him, and he smelled his clothes and he blessed him, saying, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the fields that Adonai has blessed." May God give you of the dew of the heaven, the fat of the earth, abundance of new grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow to you. Be master over your brothers, and let your mother's sons bow to you. Cursed be they who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. Remember that the tents were not soundproof. Also, Vanessa Oakes again sees this as evidence of the complementary strength Isaac and Rebecca brought to their marriage and co-parenting, that Rebecca was better at making things happen and Isaac was better at accepting what is before him. There are some parallels between the blessing that Isaac gives Jacob and the oracle that Rebecca receives, Act 2, Scene 2, such as the blessing of prosperity, the language of nations, and the promise of the brother serving him. Also, both are in poetry. What might Rebecca be thinking during this part of the story? And what might Rebecca be feeling during this part of the story?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rebecca's happy that Jacob got the blessings.
So far.
Okay, let's go on. I want to make sure we finish this today. Marilyn, would you read this next scene, please?
No sooner had Jacob left the presence of his father Isaac, after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, then his brother Esau came back from the hunt. He too prepared a dish and brought it to his father, and he said to his father, "Let my father sit up and eat of his son's game, so that you may give me your innermost blessing." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son Esau, your firstborn." Isaac was seized with very violent trembling. "Who was it then," he demanded, "that hunted game and brought it to me? Moreover, I ate of it before you came, and I blessed him. Now he must remain blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst into wild and bitter sobbing and said to his father, "Bless me too, father." But he answered, "Your brother came with guile and took away your blessing." Esau said, "Was he then named Jacob, that he might supplant me these 2 times? First he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing." And he added, have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered, saying to Esau, "But I have made him master over you." I have given him all his brothers for servants and sustained him with grain and wine. What then can I still do for, I lost your
There we
place.
go. Top of the screen.
I don't see it.
The top line.
What then can I still do for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you but one blessing, father? Bless me too, father. And Esau wept aloud, and his father Isaac answered, saying to him, see, your abode shall enjoy the fat of the earth and the dew of the heaven above. Yet by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restive, you shall break his yoke from your neck.
All right, thank you. So, remembering that tents were not soundproof, what might Rebecca be thinking during this part of the story? And what might Rebecca be feeling during this part of the story?
I say she might be worried that Esau would take revenge upon Jacob.
Sounds good. Marilyn?
I feel like both parents did like a rivalry between both brothers.
I see two parts here. I see what Marilyn said about the fear about Esau's behavior and as a reaction to this. I also see that she sees relief now that the blessing has been confirmed by Yitzhak, that there's no take back. Yitzhak says the blessing stands. So she's succeeded in the blessing in being bestowed upon Yaakov. Now it's a matter of saving Yaakov's life to carry it out.
All right, let's go on to scene 7.
David, do we have any information as to how Jacob and Rebecca, or rather Isaac and Rebecca, got along after this?
No. You can make up the world's newest midrash on the matter.
David, so it said that Isaac was 100 at the time that Esau took both his wives. So that means that Rebecca was also 100?
No, she's definitely younger, but it's unclear how much younger. Depends on how you want to interpret the text.
Oh, she probably wasn't a spring chicken though.
No, definitely not.
Not a spring goat either.
Okay. Let's see. Gabriel, would you read this scene, please?
Sure. Now Esau harbored a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which his father had given him. And Esau said to himself, let but the mourning period of my father come, and I will kill my brother Jacob. When the words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. Now, my son, listen to me. Flee at once to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with him a while until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will fetch you from there. Let me not lose you both in one day.
Okay, thank you. So, given that we only have a few more minutes, I'm going to speed up at this point. It's unclear if Rebecca already had wanted Jacob to find a wife from where she came from, and this was a good time to persuade him to go along with that, or if Rebecca thought of this in this moment. Either way, she wisely doesn't say anything to Jacob about getting married. in the next scene, Rebecca says to Isaac, I'm fed up with, I don't like the fact that Esau has married these Hittite women. I don't want Jacob to marry these Hittite women. Do something about it. So Isaac sends for Jacob and says, don't marry anybody around from this area. Go to where your mother came from and take a wife from there. And may you be blessed and have offspring and land and good luck. Paraphrasing here. So then, after Jacob goes off, Esau sees that that his previous wives or his current wives are not pleasing to his parents, so he goes to Ishmael and takes another wife, Ishmael's daughter. And that is where this ends. So again, just like Abraham said, my son should marry from my ancestral hometown, now it's Rebecca who's following Abraham's footsteps. And hopefully this woman will have the same values as the previous generation. Also, this scene might give us a glimpse into how Rebecca and Isaac's marriage went under more normal circumstances. One could play that out. And she's not, just like she didn't say anything to Jacob about getting married, she didn't say anything to Isaac about saving Jacob's life. So she's using her persuasion skills here. Finishing this off, we have an epilogue. So later on, when Jacob goes off, he comes back, he reunites with his brother, and then this is 20 years later after all these events, we find out one verse interrupting the action that Rebecca's nurse, Deborah, dies, and Jacob buries her under the oak below Bethel, which is named Oak of Weeping, Elon Bakut. So we never hear that Deborah goes to Jacob. We never hear that Rebecca dies. The rabbis have a field day playing with this verse and trying to come up with interpretations. That this is sandwiched between two divine visits to Jacob. Maybe God is comforting the mourners. Lots of stuff going on here. Later on, at the very end of Genesis, which is coming up soon in the Torah reading, when Jacob is dying, he says, bury me with my ancestors in the cave of Machpelah, which is where Abraham and Sarah were buried, and where Isaac and Rebecca were buried, and that's where I buried Leah. And then he dies. So we hear that Jacob and Esau bury Isaac. We never hear anything about Rebecca dying. We never hear anything about her burial. But here we find out that she was buried with Isaac. So it's a bit of an epilogue. And then here we have a map where you can see where Rebecca journeyed from and to, and where her life was. And here's a video and some historical evidence for the Rebecca story, namely that there's no archaeological evidence because everything was biodegradable back then, but that doesn't mean that she didn't exist. And we have another archaeological evidence about wives being introduced as sisters from the Nuzi tablets from 1800, around the time of Rebecca. And finally, a Reader's Theater version.